We've identified a new asbestos-related disease, and we're figuring out ways to avoid it.
Her story lives on in each and every one of you.
Firefighters that have lost their lives, that have really put everything on the line.
Hello again. There's a word that as musicians we're not very fond of, or a expression, which is rock star. Because usually it's somebody like Linda who grabs us by the face and goes, "You're such a rock star." And for us, you know, rock stars are like Led Zeppelin and Ozzy Osbourne, so. But if we're going to use it as a catch-all, then to describe when somebody's excelling at their craft, then Congressman Bruce Vento was a rock star. And he served 24 years. He was the kind of politician that we rarely wish for, because we're too cynical to hope that we'd ever find that type of person. And last year we decided, Linda and I, when we had the Warren Zevon Keep Me in Your Heart Award, we decided that the rock star that year was Bruce. And unfortunately, Sue couldn't be with us at the time to accept the award, but Sue Vento is here tonight. And she is a wonderful person who has made her voice heard, and I'll say a rock star again. And I think we have a video to watch, and then I'll be back.
I think the best thing I could say about Bruce Vento is the now very famous thing Henry Adams said nearly a century ago: a teacher affects humanity. Bruce has become a real friend to me over these last 7.5 years. He's been an honest and trusted advisor, and he's always said exactly what he thought. And as a consequence, I have also been his student.
Bruce was a junior high science teacher in the Minneapolis schools following his graduation from the University of Wisconsin River Falls. He taught junior high science and loved it. He ran for the Minnesota House of Representatives in 1970 and served 3 two-year terms in the Minnesota House, and served in the U.S. House of Representatives starting in 1977. Bruce was a champion on the environment.
He has steered into law more than 300 bills to protect our natural resources.
That was remarkable. Those were tough times, and it was hard to get legislation through, but because he worked well with others, and because there were others who shared his passion for the environment, it happened. And it's just so striking to think that it was a part of the environment, asbestos, that was the cause of his death. The irony does not go unnoticed.
And our job as a legislator is just to take new information and knowledge and translate it into public policy. That's all we have to do.
One of his favorite things to do was to go to schools. And he didn't want to go into a school and give fancy speeches. He wanted to go into the school and really just spend time with the kids and work with the teachers, and not so much be a celebrity, but be a part of their education.
And that, to me, is the story of Bruce Vento. He was brought up to get up in the morning and go to work. We're so pleased that we were able to contribute to the U.S. Congress a man who we're very proud of.
And it was at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester where he was diagnosed with mesothelioma. We were both just shocked. Mesothelioma wasn't a part of our vocabulary. We couldn't spell it, we couldn't say it, didn't really understand it. A part of the shock was just the wonder as to where the exposure could have occurred. He was at a loss. He worked his way through college, however, in 3 different settings on the east side of St. Paul, and all 3 of those work settings had some levels of asbestos in the work settings.
Worked hard to get ahead, and by God I did. And now this illness that really reaches back from my past, you might say, comes up and gets you when you're 59 years young.
And tonight, as he fights a disease which has not yet yielded all its secrets to science, he's our teacher again. He's certainly shown us a lot about courage, and we're very grateful to it.
One of the proudest things that's happened since this retirement announcement had been that there was a school in the area that I had attended with the school board, and they unanimously passed a resolution renaming it the Bruce F. Vento Elementary School.
The irony of the Keep Me in Your Heart award for me is I remember a Saturday morning, I was running around pulling together some materials related to Bruce's battle with mesothelioma, and I have NPR on, Minnesota Public Radio, and it's the weekend edition with Scott Simon. Scott was interviewing Warren Zevon, and I was just stunned to hear that Warren Zevon had mesothelioma. I was stunned to hear his voice, and I was just blown away by the music. It was the most beautiful song, and Bruce would be just so honored to be receiving this award.
Keep me in your heart for a while.
The mystic and theologian Meister Eckhart once said, the only prayer you ever have to say is thank you. And I know that Bruce would want me to say thank you to ADAO and to Jordan and to Jordan's dear father for the honor of receiving this award. If he were able to be here tonight, he'd give a far more eloquent speech and he'd have some great jokes. But he'd also just insist that all of us keep our loved ones in our heart and do everything we can to keep their memory alive through our efforts to really push state and federal decision makers to do the right thing.
Keep me in your heart for a while.
Bruce and I started dating 20 years ago last week. I was 40, had dated. Certain periods of my life had dated a lot, other periods of my life not so much, depending on what kind of a crazy job I had. And at that point in my life, I had a really crazy job, so I wasn't dating much. And the phone rang one afternoon at my office, and I answered it, and this voice said, "Hi, Sue, this is Bruce Vento." Blah, blah, blah. I had a little chit-chat, and then he said, "I have tickets to see No Newt is Good Newt at the Dudley Riggs Theater." Now, this was April of 1995, 6 months after the Republicans had taken control of the House. And I don't want to offend anybody here tonight politically, but anyway, I'll go ahead. I'll offend. Anyway, he asked me if I wanted to go. He asked if I wanted to go to see No Newt is Good Newt. My immediate reaction was that he was trying to unload the tickets. So I sat there for what felt like forever thinking, well, who am I going to get to go with me? And finally I thought, oh, who cares? Just take the tickets. If you don't use them, he'll never know. So I said yes, and he said, great, I'll pick you up at 7:15. Where do you live? At which point there was a really embarrassing pause because I had no idea where I lived. I was in such a state of shock. So we had known each other for a while, so I can't say it was love at first sight, but it was a great romance. And for 5 years, we were very, very happy. In January of 2000, he was diagnosed, and shortly after his diagnosis, my current boss, Father John Malone, asked Bruce, when the hell are you two going to get married? And Bruce said, well, I got this disease, and I got to get an annulment. So following Bruce's completion of the recovery from the surgery, recovery from the chemotherapy, and recovery from the radiation treatments, we were married. And at the point at which we said the vows and talked about until death do you part, it was really poignant. And little did we know that just less than 6 weeks later he would die. There has not been a day since Bruce passed that I haven't thought of him, of course. There probably hasn't been a moment. But for sure there hasn't been a day that since Bruce passed that someone hasn't talked about him. So he really does live on in our hearts. And so to receive this is just a wonderful, wonderful tribute. The one last little uncanny thing I need to share with you is that in Italian, vento means wind. Yeah.